The idea of being full-time for the Lord and running for Him and going to the nations sounds amazing. But when the call comes, like, are we really positioned to hear the Lord in that? Are we really ready to lay down everything that we might have built up around us because God is calling us? One thing that I've learned from this journey is the fact that He's kind to us in allowing us to first go on a journey before He calls us into our destiny, to allow suffering, to allow a season of waiting, and to teach us to wait on Him. And then when we start walking in what He's called us, then there's so much more peace, because then it's about Him and not about us. When I got saved at the age of 15, I radically got saved. The Lord took me out of a very dark place. He met me in my room. I was alone, and the presence of the Lord filled the room. From that moment, I wanted to do everything for the Lord. In Joburg, I had the opportunity to go full-time in ministry. We did Bible school, got an offer from a church there. People said, like, they feel it's not from the Lord. But I was so eager to run full-time for the Lord. I didn't even hear the voices around me. I didn't consider their warnings at all. So we went full-time for a year, and it was absolutely amazing. I had like 3 hours in the morning to spend with Jesus next to the river. It was like the most amazing setup. In that season, the Lord told me, I can remember I was praying next to the river the one morning, and the presence of the Lord was so intense that I could feel Jesus walking up the river towards me. And the Lord said to me, I've never called you to be here at this church. And that shook me. And I had to resign because the conviction was so strong. Went back to the previous church, repented, and said to them, sorry for not listening to their advice. And we got hurt by that whole move. People call it church hurt. I think it's choices that we make, and then we want to blame someone, and usually the church is the outcome. And I've always thought, like, when you have the gifts and the ability, that's something that will bring you far. And part of joining JoshGen, I've learned that the Lord anoints and He appoints, and you can have all the gifts in the world, but if you don't have Jesus and live a life fully surrendered to Him, you can actually totally miss what the Lord is doing. And I must say, the last year, the desire started just jumping up in our hearts again. And I started sharing with some of the guys, and it's like, what does it look like? How do I steward this thing in my heart? Because it is a desire I feel that the Lord has placed in my heart. But how do I steward the thing of, Lord, I really want to do this full time for You, but I don't want it to be a stumbling block in following You well in the season. And about 2 months ago, I received a call, would you want to go full time? And then when we got the question, I was so careful. And I can remember I prayed and I was like, Lord, I want to hear Your voice in this season. I want to know that You are calling us. And the one night I woke up in the middle of the night, I had heart palpitations. It was a weird night, and I prayed and I was like, Lord, speak to me, speak to me. And I fell asleep and I woke up in a cabin. And the only thing in the cabin was a table in front of me and a fire. And it was dark, but the light of the fire illuminated the room. And the cabin was filled with the presence of the Lord. You know that scripture that says that in the stillness of who He is, they will find peace? And I really experienced the Lord there. And as I looked up, I saw a handwriting go with the exclamation mark. And I woke up and I was so overwhelmed because the Lord spoke to me. And I knew it was the Lord. It is so evident that the Lord spoke to me. And I kept quiet about it because now I want to steward this thing well. And I didn't tell Annalien, and later that morning Annalien came to me and she said, Anton, I had a dream. And the Lord spoke to her in the dream and said that He's going to send us.
The emotions I felt in the dream was, we are going. It was that morning that we are leaving our current family and going into the more and getting a new family within the kingdom. But they knew in the dream that we are going, but I couldn't verbalize what was going on. It was an emotional thing the Lord spoke to me, and it kind of prepped me as the wife to feel the emotions and go through it, but know that He called us and He's going to be faithful. And the end part of the Great Commission, when He sent out the disciples, go into the nations, the last part said that I will always be with you. And that for me was, even though it is sad, but He's going to be there with us for everything.
For 20 years I had the desire to run full-time for the Lord. And the desire became so big. And then in that moment where the Lord spoke to us, I was so overwhelmed because it wasn't about the calling anymore. It was about obeying Him and being with Jesus and just seeing Him in the journey. Then everything else dims away and falls away, and He becomes the calling. He becomes the journey. Everything that I do needs to be originated and coming from the person of Jesus, and that's obedience.